Hey, Julian, I actually was just clicked onto your email, so I'm taking a look at it right now. Um, Try emailing me. Just copy and paste the browser link to it and email that to me. I'll test it and see if I can open it. Usually, what'll happen when things like that happen is like I would click it and I'll just have to click start show. You won't get the link of the show of your presentation actually active. That I've had that error happen before. I don't know what causes it. But if you send it to me while the live stream's up, just let me know in chat and I'll go and click it really quick to confirm. And I'll chat about the paper and the poster in probably about 2 more minutes. We'll get started with things. Give a minute or two for people to trickle in. But if you have any specific questions, you can definitely post them in chat, and I will make sure to cover them. It might be like a browser dependent issue, Dylan. I'm not really sure. But I've had students say that same thing before. And usually, what happens is we just have them share the direct link, and it pretty much works out that way. But let me confirm. Right. As soon as it gets to my email, it's not there yet. That works. Just on the discussion board, just post that link. It's exactly what I said. It sends us the thing, so we have to actually like make it full screen. But it works. I don't know what causes that error, that bug to happen. But I have had somebody say it before. So easy workaround. Thank you for reaching out. I'm glad you did because it would have been really, really unfortunate if that link like didn't work and it was on the discussion board. That would have been problematic. But that worked fine, so we should have no issues. All right. Only a couple of people in the room right now, but I will still chat about papers and posters. Julian, that poster looked like it was fine. I didn't read through it. I just clicked through it. So you might not even need a lot of that discussion, but I'm still going to talk really quick about it. We'll go into detail however long we need. Oh, that's a good question. Let me start with that. So I graded a few of them yesterday. And then I'm going to continue grading some more tonight. And then tomorrow I'm going to spend most of the day grading them. So there'll probably be a few that don't get posted till Wednesday, but the majority of the exam grades will be up tomorrow. I'm going to get to a couple of them later today, but I have a lot of other obligations, so I'm not going to really be able to get a ton of time today to grade. I have meetings and calls until about 4 today. So I'll still get some up. So you might see it today. More likely, though, I'm probably going to get through tomorrow almost everyone. Paper grades will take me a little bit, though. I don't actually have like a like I didn't make a plan of I want them done by this day. I'm hoping that I can get through them by like Friday night, but realistically, I think the papers probably will end up trickling into early next week. But I'm going to try to get all of your grades done this week so that you'd have plenty of time to take a look at them. But there's a lot of things I need to grade. So despite dedicating my all of my time to grading, it's going to take me a while. I'm going to try to get it up as quick as I can for you. Hoping by like Friday night you'll see grades up for pretty much everything. But there'll probably be some trickling down that'll still happen. But I'll post an announcement when everything is up. Exam grades, I'm hoping to have everyone up by tomorrow. There's a good possibility that there'll be a couple that I have to finish up on Wednesday, though. And the papers and posters is what's due today. Let me start with posters, actually, because I want to start with one important thing just to clarify, and I'm going to post an announcement about this as well. Posters themselves, the actual poster that you post, either the Prezi or the physical poster board with photos, that's worth 60% of your grade on this assignment. And I hope to give 60 out of 60 to every single person, and I expect to give it to most people. As long as you take the poster seriously, and the two rules of thumb with the poster that I have for you is, one, imagine that you're taking your paper and you are breaking your paper down into a research worksheet. So it's got that same type of summary. Follow the templates that are available to you in the module. As long as you have that information, the essential takeaways from Article 1, Article 2, and putting them together, why they're important together. As long as you have those takeaways on the poster, the other big thing that I'm looking for is, as far as content is concerned, say to yourself, how long will it take someone to read through the entirety of my poster? And if your answer to that is less than a minute, you don't have enough information. If your answer to that is more than 3 minutes, you probably have too much information. To read through your poster should take us about 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes to get through. I expect that almost everyone is going to get the 60 out of 60 because I plan on grading them easy. Because it's a big change that we're doing this online, I'm planning on being very lenient with some things. But as long as you take those things seriously, if you give me a poster that takes 45 seconds to read through, just not enough content. So make sure you follow the instructions, but you should get that 60 out of 60. Now that's due today. But there's also something due tomorrow and Wednesday for the poster. Tomorrow, you're going to go onto the discussion board forum. So today, you submit your Prezi on the discussion board forum. Tomorrow, I want you to go in and I want you to reply to 2 other classmates' posters. The thing I want you to do when replying is I want you to ask them a question about their poster and about their research. We've done this before on the other discussion board, so it's not something you haven't done before. 20% of your grade on the poster assignment is going to come from this. And all you're doing is asking a question to 2 different people. I'm going to ask you to do 2. I'm going to ask you to ask questions to people who did not choose the same bullet point that you did, because I want you to get information about the other topics that were available in the library session. We had 15 bullet points, and I'd say probably about 10 are represented in each class. I want you to go and get a little information about some of the other bullet points. So I'm going to ask that you don't reply to the ones that did the same question that you did. And I'm also going to ask that if you look and you see 3 questions already asked to someone, find someone that doesn't have a lot of questions. Try to spread the questions out. On Wednesday, all you have to do is go back onto your forum and answer any questions that you were asked about your poster. That's it. That one will take 10 minutes. That shouldn't take long at all. Tuesdays, you have to click through and read some poster assignments, so it might take a half an hour. But Wednesdays will take all of 10 minutes. So poster on the discussion board today. Tomorrow you ask 2 questions, one question to 2 different classmates' posters. And on Wednesday, you just go in and you answer whatever questions you were asked. Paper, short version of the paper is you will have a paper that has let me start at the beginning. You have a title page, an abstract page, a reference page, APA format for all three. Then you have a 3-page paper in the body of your paper. It'll have an introduction and conclusion like a normal essay, but it does 3 things primarily. Talking all about Article 1, and you already should have that done. That's in your research worksheet. You're just expanding, into your paper. Then talking about Article 2. Now, if you don't have a research worksheet done for Article 2, you can create one. I would recommend to do that. It's even in the assignment. It's not graded. You don't have to submit the new research worksheet to me. It will be for you to help writing your paper up. You're going into the specifics about Article 2. So specifics about Article 1, specifics about Article 2. The last thing that you're doing is talking about why those 2 articles are important when you put them together. That is comparing and contrasting, summarizing them, whatever you might need, but specifically mention when you put these 2 things together, how do they answer your bullet point question? And that's what goes in the paper. I see you asked a question. Let me take a look. Just take a look. It's hard. That's a hard question for me to answer because you have to look at their poster to see. But you could just ask for a little extra information about something. You can ask for clarification about something. So for example, let's say the paper you wrote was on social media's role in relationships. And then for the poster, you find ones that did something different. So let's say you go on to someone's poster, Can Exercise Fight Depression? And depending on what direction they went with that, they could go very different directions. But let's say they're talking about, let's say they were talking about doing yoga to fight depression. You could ask them, so would other types of meditation and meditative exercises help fight depression? Or would this be good for anxiety? Or do you think going for a run would also help fight depression? You could ask for a clarification on what they write. Maybe they're writing about doing yoga and they don't mention how long you should do it for. Maybe you can ask them, is there like a amount of time that you need minimum to do it? Is a 20-minute yoga session enough, or do you need to do longer or something like that? Use your own judgment. Whatever you're more interested in finding out more information about, that's what to ask. We're not asking, you don't need to ask really detailed, do research to ask them questions. You're asking them very basic, generalized questions. When you go and answer the questions you're asked, you should have the answers already from what the research that you did already in mind. It shouldn't be really, really detailed questions. And if you're asked something really, really detailed and you don't know the answer, you could just say, I don't know the answer to that, because I wouldn't expect you to if it was incredibly research driven. If it's beyond the scope of your experiment, that's okay if you don't have an answer to that. But if you look at someone's poster, I think you'll pretty quickly be able to target something that you can ask them. And you can even ask questions like, was there something that you researched that really surprised you? Or what was the thing that you took away the strongest here? All those kind of things are all fine. It's conversational type of questions. No, not like the group discussions for the articles. This is going to be more conversational things. There will definitely be questions like, what surprised you in your research, or is there anything that you researched that you're going to start to actually do yourself now? You'll see questions like that, and you'll also see a whole bunch of questions that might be looking for more clarification on their research as well. They're all okay. It's not. Don't look at this like it's a overly formal thing. This is just conversational, getting a little more information about what they researched. And think about from yourself what you researched on your bullet point, your 2 articles. You're going to be familiar with those 2 articles, so you're going to be able to talk about them with ease, probably. Now, there could be some in-depth questions that you couldn't, but most of the questions you'll be asked, you'll be able to answer with ease. And papers, you're submitting just like you submitted the exams. You're going to submit them on Canvas through an assignment. Posters, you submit on the discussion board. Follow the templates that you have there. Follow the templates that you have there. I'm not overly strict about how you really structure it. If you do a physical poster board, the easiest way to submit them is going to be using a photo sharing thing like Imgur or Flickr. If you're doing a Prezi, you just submit the link to the Prezi. And make sure that they are on the discussion board. I only will accept them on the discussion board because the point of this assignment is so that other people in the class can take a look at these, get some information on the other bullet points that they that were available that they did not choose. As far as papers are concerned, two important things that I want to really quickly mention. Make sure you do in your papers. The most important thing, please do not forget to have in-text citations. The two things I'm about to mention are the things I commonly see people forget, mistakes that are made. Make sure you have in-text citations. They are essential in any piece of research writing that you're doing. And also try to keep your quotes to a minimum. And I say that specifically because I noticed that is the strongest difference between a great college writer and an average one is in how often that they quote, and the difference between a competent academic writer and a poor academic writer is a lot of people do not know how to use in-text citations. You need to learn how to do that. And the second tip is keep your quotes to a minimum. For an assignment like this, if you have more than 3 quotes in there, you just have too much. And realistically, you should have 0 or 1 quotes in your paper. You should only be quoting things when you can't decide how to change them into your own words, or if the way that it's worded itself is important. Now, sometimes that happens, so that's why sometimes you definitely quote, but that should be done to a minimum. Quotes are something to avoid wherever possible. So that's everything with the paper, I think. APA format for the paper. Most of that is right in the template that you guys have available in the module. So that I don't think will be too difficult. Both references and title page, APA format, and you have that all in the template. Poster on the discussion board. I think I mentioned everything with the poster. Yeah, but just whatever questions that you all might have. I went into a lot of detail about all of this in the early live stream today, and I can do that again right now. But there was a much larger turnout in the early live stream, so we went into a lot of detail. So I'm going to share a link to that live stream as an announcement as well. But I could still go into that detail with everyone now if you have questions, if you would like me to. Yep, 1 question to each person to 2 different people. And those should be done on Tuesday. And Wednesday, you're just answering the questions that you were asked, and hopefully everyone's asked a question. But that part we will have to see. Hopefully everyone remembers to participate, but. So make sure you write any questions that you guys have in chat. I do want to say thank you to everyone for keeping up with everything that we did with the state of the world and everything going on. We were changing an entire semester from face-to-face class onto an online class. It was a challenge for everyone. It was something that I had never had to do, was not prepared to do, and that's going to go for all of your professors. This was something that was overwhelming for your professors, as well as I'm sure overwhelming for many of you students. And I thank you all for keeping up with everything, for making the best out of this situation that was all that we could do. but we overcame it. As long as you're getting the assignments in today for the paper and the poster, and the couple of odds and ends you need to do for the poster tomorrow and Wednesday, then we're finishing the semester from there. And at that point, it seems like almost everyone has kept up with everything, done very well with everything. So thank you for keeping up with everything that was needed to, doing the best that you could, given the uncertainty of the world, all the pressure that you had for all of your classes and on top of trying to keep up with what's going on in the virus in terms of the news, and then dealing with friends and family that you might be worried about for their health. Just thank you guys for keeping up with everything that we had. We were able to overcome school-wise. We were able to overcome this, and then as far as the virus itself, we're going to overcome that as well. The weather's starting to warm up, and hopefully that will bring lessening of the virus, maybe even it going away for the summer. I think that actually will be what ends up happening. I think it'll probably come back in the fall for a second wave, but the summer is hopefully good news. I hope that you guys weren't afraid to sign up for summer classes, even though the semester is all online. All I can say about that is that what we did here for this class, for this semester and all of your classes, this was not the same as an online class. This was taking a face-to-face class, putting it online the best that we can. It wasn't perfect. And this summer isn't going to be perfect either, but it was the best that we could do for this semester. And in the summer, it's going to be better because we're going to start off with it online. There were assignments in our class that didn't transition to an online class, like the movie poster just didn't fit. The group discussions that we were doing online were not ideal, definitely less than ideal. You all now have familiarity with using Canvas, which will make online classes better. And your online classes will be designed from the ground up around things that work for an online classroom. And all of those things will make your summer classes better. Now, the problem with summer session in general is it goes so quickly. That's true if you're taking it in face-to-face or in the class or online. The summer session goes by really quickly, so you're going to be dealing with a lot of work online, for a short period of time if you decide to take a summer class online. But that's just the nature of how summer classes work. So I hope it didn't scare anyone off. I hope that all of your professors were able to do the best that they can with you. I mean, I've heard so many great stories of things that professors have done. And not that I know anyone here that this applies to, but there's definitely been the unfortunate stories that I've heard from other schools of professors that just weren't able to do this. I haven't heard those here, and I hope that you didn't have any of those cases here. But I've heard a lot of great stories of the things that professors have been able to do and students have been able to do at Middlesex. And hopefully it continues into the summer. Like I mentioned this to you all before, but I teach a lot online. And while this obviously was less than ideal in every single way, and I wouldn't by any means say that I expect you all to have said, oh, this was amazing switching online. I don't feel that way, and I don't think that any of you will. I also can say from being very experienced with teaching online that a regular online class doesn't work like this. It doesn't feel like this. This was its own unique thing. So I hope that this didn't scare you off from taking an online class. And I think that the summer session will be better for pretty much everyone that decides to take classes, at least. Keith, but I think that's a possibility. If you have any other questions about assignments, poster paper, let me know in the chat. If you have other questions or just other things that you want to talk about, let me know. But I will post a link to the other live stream because it was a lot busier and I went over all these questions. I'll still go over anything that you're curious about for this one, but I'll post a link to the hour-long live stream that's really informative for anyone who might need as well. I don't know the answer to that, Jillian. You'd have to ask someone in the science department. All I know is that that was the biggest challenge when it came to things going online are the classes with labs, but I don't know what the resolution was to how that all was going to be. You're on camera, but um, if you see the class and the class schedule, Jillian, you can just email the professor that's listed as the professor on the class schedule for summer and ask what the plan is for how lab is going to be handled. I'm sure they're getting that question quite a bit. Well, thank you, Jill. That's very, very nice to hear. That's basically the best compliment that I feel like I can get is when someone says, not necessarily me versus another section you took, but if someone says that I made things easier for them to understand, that means that I did a really good job. That's my goal every single time I teach this class, is to try to teach everything in a way that's it's easy for everyone to understand. Not just the people who are thinking about majoring in psychology, but also the people who are just fulfilling a requirement in the class. It definitely makes me happy to hear. I like social psychology the most as far as intro to psychology's chapters are concerned. I am an IO psychologist, so we don't really cover that with intro to psychology, but obviously that means that's going to be one of my favorite things. That's all about the psychology of business, like what motivates an employee, things like that. So, what makes someone want to work or something like that. Um, Very relevant actually to today's world, as unemployment's getting higher and higher, and that's going to be an interesting thing that's going to come about. Uh, but social psychology is what a lot of my research is a cross between social psychology as well as IO psychology. So that's by far and away my favorite subject. As far as classes I teach, I love teaching intro to psychology. I love teaching social psychology. I'm teaching social this summer. And then I also always enjoy teaching adolescent psychology quite a bit as well. I just feel like, as Jillian was saying, like how to relate information, how to make it so that you can understand. I feel like when it comes to adolescence, that's probably my best class. My greatest strength in that class is almost everything we talk about in that class. I have like really strong, like really examples that really just come to my mind really strongly that I think helps a lot. So because I think I am able to relay that information really well, I enjoy teaching that, even though that's not as strongly in my discipline. What did you enjoy the most, Keith? Learning, learning and behaviorism. I like that one too. Um, a lot of times learning goes very strongly with developmental psychology. So adolescent psychology, lifespan and development, learning behaviorism, a lot of they're all in the same pillar for psychology, and that I enjoy that whole pillar a lot. And it overlaps a good amount with the pillar that I like the most, which is where social psychology would fall. And like motivation is in that pillar as well. We didn't go into Maslow a lot in the hierarchy of needs, but that's um, a lot of people are familiar with Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. We did social and personality from that pillar. We did two from every pillar. Any of you guys, if anyone in here still has any questions or anything you want to chat about, make sure you send me a little message. I see the people in the room is going up and down a little bit, so I don't know if that's YouTube having a little trouble reading it or if someone is like coming in and out. Sometimes that can happen with your phone. But depending on what is happening, if anyone has any questions, let me know. I'm still here for as long as you guys need. If Connect is what I think it is, I think it has the new name. If it's what I think it is, it's basically just another like a normal test. I don't think that's I don't think that the that Connect is anything too crazy to use. I think it's basically just like you're taking a test online where you have just the multiple choices all available to you. So I think you'll be okay. Um, so the biggest misconception when it comes to motivation for whether we have job satisfaction, whether we actually like our job, is people think that money is the most important thing, and that's actually a popular misconception. And it's a popular misconception among college students because college students often are not making enough money. But once we are making enough money to survive whatever type of life that we want, money actually starts to. It's still on the towards the top of the list, but it's usually not number one or number two. Usually falls between number three and number five in people's priority orders. What that means is that if you're not making enough, money is always the most important thing because you need to make enough to survive to live the lifestyle you want to live. Once you have that, the additional money, it's still important to us because it's a way of saying we're doing a good job. It's a way that a company says, all right, we value you. But the number one thing on most people's lists has something to do with leadership. We want to work for a boss who we think is a good boss that we like as a on a personal level, and a lot of the nuances of leadership development actually go into that. It's all about the book that I always use when I would consult off of this. It's about leading with both backbone and heart. And that means that you need to have the backbone to make sure the work gets done because ultimately you have accountability to your superiors based off of the work output. You need to have the heart to understand that your employees, your subordinates, are human beings. They will have the same challenges of any other human being. They will have issues from home. They will have issues that come up in work. That they will have personal relationships at work, and it's impossible. It's I should say impossible. It's impractical to try to forbid those type of relationships. Um, so to that, it's mostly about leadership, having that balance. And one of the most important things for a leadership, well, I guess two important things I'd mention is having a style that people respond to, which typically today is called participative leadership. It's a leader who will get their feet wet along with you. So when you're in the weeds, when you're overwhelmed, they'll help you, as well as someone with follow through. So people will respond and they'll accept if you tell them no. But when you say to them every single time they ask you something, all right, let me see what I can do, and then you never do anything, people lose trust in you. They lose the belief in you. And that is essential for a strong leader. So usually it has something to do with leadership. The number two thing for most people actually goes typically into um, what into the category of organizational culture, but that category has evolved so much that it involves your actual workspace. It involves your company's beliefs. It involves extra things your company does for motivation. So that could be within benefits, but often that's things like bringing in bagels for breakfast on a day, um, having well, having the workspace that gets into like ergonomics. So like your workspace doesn't feel like a cubicle for a lot of people helps. Being able to stand up at your desk can help. Having places on the where you work that you can go and take a walk and just get some fresh air. All of those things start to factor, and that's usually number two. But that's such a that category has branched so many places that it's hard to really define what that is anymore. And then you get into money, you get into a lot of other things that go along with money, like vacation time, benefit packages. Ability to work from home for some people is really important. Some people care about companies that are um, that treat people better, give back more. Some people care more about the ability to grow within their company. All different things that become very different person to person. Some of those things could be really, really interesting things to read more about. I'm particularly very interested in organizational culture development, so I find that very, very interesting. I find it very interesting because it was so surprising to me how important people believed it was, that when I realized how important people value culture development and reform, it kind of is interesting because I don't want to say companies don't understand that it's that important, but there's not enough research going into um, how important people value it isn't equaling how much research is going into it. Whereas with leadership, everyone is doing research on leadership now. Like everyone understands, all right, it's that important, it's that valuable. But with culture reform, not quite as much. There's been a lot in terms of health and wellness. So like what's called ergonomics in the workforce. A lot for like health and wellness type of things. The ability to get some exercise while you're at work. Um, to stretch, to stand up, to sit down, to not just be staring at a computer screen all day, every day. But that's really the only place that's seen that. And I suppose that in certain industries that need creativity, there has been a lot of research on what sparks creativity in an organization. But that's really all. That's the directions that. So it definitely interests me. Any other questions you have, Keith? I have a call in 8 minutes, so I have a couple more minutes to answer anything. Absolutely. We spend too many hours at work to not be comfortable and enjoy being there. And especially with the direction that there's been a big paradigm shift with the current generation entering the workforce and their desires and expectations compared to the generation that is starting to leave the workforce. So the tail end of the baby boomer generation. The needs, the desires are so different. And research actually has been really concluding some important things about that as well, in terms of like the level of motivation you need to get someone to enjoy their job if they're working 60 hours a week, for example. That's a situation where you can really only motivate that person with money, compared to today with the average 40-hour work week that's actually even shrinking a little bit as we realize that we can get that same amount of work done more efficiently through other means. And that's a lot of that's starting to do research on European models, because the idea of work is very different in some European nations. And the way that they get the work done, yet they still get the same output as we might get done. They just get it done in very different methodology. Um, Less total hours at work, but more productivity in the hours that they are working. There's there's a couple of different, I'm gonna say a lot. There's a couple of different ways to do this, to accomplish this. I want to say the most commonly seen is a 2-hour lunch break with 2 3-hour bursts of productivity. So 3 hours in the morning, a long lunch, 3 hours in the afternoon. But there also are European models where it is a shorter work day of just um, more productivity there, and basically then you take a what in essence would equate to a late lunch, and your day stops there, where that lunch kind of just is a recovery period for you, and then you have your personal time afterwards. Um, so 4 to 6 hour work days with different breaks, but more productivity in those specific work days. In the American model, what we actually find is for many roles, an individual is only productive for 15 minutes of every 60 minutes they spend at work, which means they only accomplish about 2 hours of work in a day. So if we are just more productive in the times that we're working, that output can be done differently. So the European models have had more success, though, shortening the time that you are like supposed to be actively working, making you more actively working during those times. but everything, depending on the role that you're doing, can be very different depending on your meeting obligations and things like that. I have about 2 more minutes before I have a meeting, so if there's anything else you want me to touch on there, but I didn't fully answer for you, let me know quick. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do because there's a lot of things when it comes to organizational culture that work better, that go against what common sense might say, but actually work better. But they only are going to work better if they work optimally. So the best example I have for you of that is something through Google. Google has done so much research on so many things, and they did research and realized that people are more productive if we put nap pods in the office. So a place where someone can close their eyes and rejuvenate for 20 minutes to then come back and work harder. Now, common sense would say, wait, you want us to encourage someone to sleep on the job? That doesn't make sense. But in an optimally efficiently use of it, that person will be more productive when they come back because they will rejuvenate and have more energy to dedicate, more resource to dedicate. They also are more willing to stay late at work because they can take the nap to recover and then get back to work, and they can spread out their day a little bit more. So in an optimally used world, that actually works better. But in a non-optimally used world, that could easily be taken advantage of. That could easily be used inefficiently. So there's a lot of potential issues with that. Another continuation of that same idea is what's called a meditation room, which is basically just a dimly lit room with a couch or with a couple of couches that you can kind of just go and get a little Zen space to recover and to refocus. That can be really helpful in high stress jobs. Whole lot of that kind of stuff. I do have to get to a call though, Keith. It was great talking to you too. If you want to talk more, you can always email me. But otherwise, let me know if you have questions about the assignments due today. And it was a pleasure talking with you in all these live streams and having you in the class. And I am going to close out the live stream. I'm going to post an announcement in about an hour with some information. But otherwise, it was great having you in this semester, and I look forward to reading all your work. Take care, Keith.